The Nuts and Bolts of Writing, Season 3, a podcast where we talk to writers about the process of writing, dive into book reviews of fiction and nonfiction books, explore literary theory, and explore different writing techniques for fiction, nonfiction, technical, academic, philosophical, and other genres of writing. Hi, everyone. Today, me, Imelda, or Fortunus Games, the host of this podcast, will be reviewing Lawrence Grossberg's Under the Cover of Chaos, Trump and the Battle for the American Right. Lawrence Grossberg is the Morris Davis Distinguished Professor in Communication and Cultural Studies at the University of North Carolina. Additionally, he is an internationally recognized leading figure in cultural studies whose work has been translated into 18 languages. In this book, Grossberg looks at whether Donald Trump's irrationality, cruelty, and bombast are quote unquote symptoms of his personality, end quote. He also looks at whether the chaos Trump has caused is a sign of his incompetence, and whether his populism, nationalism, and illiberalism is an appeal to existing feelings of rage, resentment, and abandonment. The thesis of his book is as follows. Grossberg argues that the chaos caused by Trumpism is strategic and meant to challenge established ideas of truth, credibility, and authority. That is why we've seen an attack on quote unquote elitist experts. And that is why so many people who feel dispossessed and alienated from such experts are drawn to Trumpism. These people don't think that elites are helping them at all. Instead, they think that elites are trying to destroy their livelihoods by flooding the country with immigrants and brainwashing the youth with un American liberal ideas. According to Grossberg, the more chaos is created through this distrust, the more images, words, and other forms of media can fight for people's attention, leading to what Grossberg calls, quote unquote, a cultural nationalism governed by a popular corporatocracy, end quote. Corporatocracy is a judicial, political, and economic system controlled by corporate interests and business corporations. Grossberg also argues that Trumpism promotes the nation without a state or a minimal state, especially if we take Trump's claims of quote unquote draining the swamp literally. On page 137, Grossberg writes, It, draining the swamp, is not the same thing as clearing away the garbage, and it does not mean merely squeezing or shrinking the state. Draining the swamp means transforming the ground itself, destroying whatever was standing on it as the condition of possibility for building something entirely different on the land, something that could not have been imagined before the swamp was drained. It is the ultimate image of creative destruction. Destruction comes before creation. This is Bannon's project, to bring everything down. In short, draining the swamp means creating a nation without a state. This is something that was always part of the New Right, an idea of cutting taxes so much that the states could afford nothing but the military. Grossberg argues that Trumpism also challenges the quote-unquote very concept of government and governance on page 138. On the same page, he continues, Trump has unleashed the possibility of taking power while breaking the very system and organization that is itself the expression and agent of that power. Trumpism, Grossberg says, values quote-unquote culture over economics and nationalism over globalism, and often sees this as the only alternative, and an uncertain one at that, to the coming racial holy war, which, it is likely to claim, is the inevitable result of democracy and multiculturalism and not of its own racisms. End quote. Page 138. That's why Fox News, Breitbart, and I would personally argue the Daily Wire present the world as a much more threatening place than it actually is, with quote-unquote un-American, end quote, Marxists, communists, and far leftists destroying traditional American values. Grossberg argues that the future looks divided in America. In the last chapter of the book, where he talks about what we can do to potentially stem the tide of polarization and civil war. He suggests that the left reframe their narratives. It's clear what the left has been saying doesn't appeal at all to the right, and even if Trump were removed from the presidential run and loses power, people who are attracted to Trumpism will not flock to the liberal side. Grossberg suggests on page 150 that the left may need quote unquote strategies to reestablish the state as a site of hope. In many ways, the state is still the only form of mediation preventing a variety of forms of social and economic injustice, including alt fascism. End quote. Ultimately, this book was a good read. However, as you can see from the quotes I've made of this book, Grossberg's writing is a bit dense and purple prosy at times. He's also quite a bit repetitive. The first half of the book was just recounting the history of the right, and that felt more substantive than the parts where he argues in favor of his thesis and provides suggestions for stemming the tide of polarization. I give this book 3.5 out of 5 stars. For me, I didn't learn anything new, and I found his writing repetitive, so I can't give it 4 out of 5 stars. However, I did appreciate Grossberg's argument about the deliberate creation of chaos, which was something I thought about too, so it's good to see someone else has talked about it in a book.